Hello everyone, my name is Phil Calvert and a very warm welcome to the Financial Advisor Mastermind and Challenge. Throughout this week, advisors, leading experts and consultants to the financial planning profession are sharing amazing insights into just what makes a world-class financial advice business. Today, I'm delighted to be speaking with someone who is a certified and chartered financial planner, providing fee-based holistic financial planning advice based in Penzance in West Cornwall. He is also an award-winning podcaster and video blogger. I am, of course, referring to Mr. Pete Matthew. How are you today, Pete?
I'm really well, mate. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
What's it like in Cornwall today?
I don't know, I've got my blinds shut on to keep the lighting good. But no, it's been a lovely week, actually. And it's half term. I've been off all week this week, so it's been very nice. Although I haven't seen much of it because I've been trying to encourage my 16-year-old to get her head down for her GCSEs. So.
Yeah, we have a similar. We have GCSEs and A-levels at the moment. So.
Rather you than me.
A lot of fun that is. So, Pete, we've met before a few times and going back quite a long time. And I've kind of watched your rise to fame, if we can use that expression, as a financial planner who's decided to do a few things differently, to take advantage of technology, and to really get some focus on providing great financial education to the broader population. But before we go down that route, can you just give us a bit of backstory as to how you came to get involved with financial planning? I think McDonald's was involved.
Yeah, it was. I'm a university dropout. I was taught to do an electronics design degree, which was fine, except I couldn't do the maths. So by the time I failed my second year, I'd met my now wife of 21 years, and I wanted to get married. And so I thought I'd better get a job. And I've been flipping burgers at McDonald's for 4 years up to that point, part-time as a student. So I went into management with them and ended up sort of running a store while my boss was seconded, pretty major store in Cardiff, and I learned a lot being a manager at McDonald's. It's a superb company to work for, certainly it was then. This is back in 1996 and 7. Right. So learned a lot, but that wasn't conducive to a newly married life, particularly when my wife was also on shifts. She was a pediatric intensive care nurse. So I had a mate who worked for the Co-op Insurance, and he got me a book, really, an area of South Wales from Newport and up the Gwent Valley. And it was the sort of classic 4-weekly industrial branch premium collecting thing and selling new policies, obviously car and house insurance as well. And it just got me into this world. I look back now, I hated it at the time, but I think I'd be really good at that job now, except it doesn't exist. So yeah, from there through another Tide role with the Royal and Sun Alliance, and then into becoming an IFA. Moved to Cornwall in 2002 because my wife is from Sennan, which is 1 mile from Land's End. So he dragged me down kicking and screaming, and now I can't remember why I was so against it, because I love it down here. Yeah,
so you're about as far southwest as it's possible to be, are you?
Pretty much. I live in Penzance now. Immediately prior, I lived in St. Just, so I could see Land's End from my bedroom window. So yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And so with Jackson's, tell us about what's a typical client for Jackson's?
Well, Jackson's have been in Penzance since 1923, so it's pretty much part of the fabric. It must be one of the oldest financial advice firms in the country, I would think. It started as a general insurance broker, sort of separated out the life and pension side in 1974. So even this bit is still older than I am. So it's we're sort of archetypical IFA. Certainly when I bought into it, it was a bit of a sleeping giant, really. That was in 2007. So, it was a bunch of sort of senior guys pretty much doing their own thing and just pooling resources. It wasn't a business, I would venture, at the time. It was sort of a collective of IFAs. Yeah. So I bought in and wanted to build a business, really. And in that time, we've done that. So there's now 6 advisors and 9 staff, 7-figure turnover. And we tend to deal not at the super wealthy end. We've got some very wealthy clients, but mostly mass affluent. So I suppose my average case size, my average sort of investment, certainly new investment, would be $250,000 and above. But as a firm, it's less than that. It's probably somewhere between 100 and 150. So nothing sort of amazing or outstanding. We don't deal with celebrities or anything like that. We're just a sort of fairly solid firm that has increasingly moved towards financial planning away from the sort of archetypal IFA model over the last 10 years or so.
And are you picking up obviously local clients, but are you also getting people who maybe live elsewhere who have second homes down in Cornwall?
I pick up a lot of people who don't live anywhere near Cornwall, and I've got loads of clients that I've never met because I do lots of business like this via Zoom and a webcam, which I think is probably unusual, but will increasingly become the norm, as perhaps we'll talk about in due course. But yeah, so my colleagues tend to deal more locally. I deal all the way around the country. It's not so much second homeowners. We have a lot of clients who are owners of good local businesses. But because of the podcast and stuff, I get just an endless stream of inquiries from really good potential clients all around the country. So I'm not scratching around for business for sure.
That's really interesting. An endless stream of inquiries.
Well, to give that some context, I'm now lining up people into May to begin work with. And we're talking 10 new clients a month.
Yeah. Okay, we'll come on to that. It's really interesting. Mm-hmm. So there you are. You've bought into Jackson's. And then along comes a gentleman called Gary Vaynerchuk, who had written a book, who hit the internet like a superhero in many respects. And what's quite interesting was that the way he started out getting well known on the internet is not dissimilar from what you're doing as well, or started out doing. Just tell us a bit about Gary and the book, and what was it that got your attention?
Yeah, the difference between him and me is scale now, right? But yeah, so Gary is a Russian immigrant to New York. So he's born in Belarus, and he moved to New Jersey when he was 3 years old, basically to escape, the Soviet regime. And it's a sort of archetypal American dream story. So when they got to New York, they lived in a studio apartment with 8 family members. His dad got a job in what we would call an off license, what they call a liquor store over there. Eventually became the manager, then bought into it as a partner, then became the sole owner of this liquor store. And Gary has always had a sort of hustler mentality. He's always been a business person. So he's big on collecting stuff. So he was big into baseball cards when he was growing up, far more interested in that when rather than studying. So he, talks about how he was basically an F student, not a great student at all, which was tough because part of the American dream, certainly for immigrant families, is that you work hard and study hard and do well academically. But Gary's a born businessman. So he was forced into the family business, despite the fact that he was making a lot of money selling baseball cards, and he's grew up in that business really. But when he went into it full time, he took it from something like a $4 million to a $60 million a year business in a very short period of time, 5 or 6 years, by a combination of traditional marketing and advertising. But also, he set up something called Wine Library TV. So he had the idea to set up a webcam like this, a video camera, and shoot himself tasting 3 wines. So he did a daily half-hour internet show on YouTube, tasting 3 wines, and did 1,000 episodes. And became a phenomenon, ended up on the Conan show and all that sort of stuff, because he's very brash, a typical New Yorker. He's not sort of the stuffy wine establishment. And in 2009, he wrote a book about how he'd done it, really, called Crush It. And the message of that book is, look, whatever your message is, if you are consistent, if you are prepared to work hard, if you offer value and do that week after week after week, then people will show up. Now, the internet is in a different place to when it was now than it was in 2008-9, but a lot of those things are still true. But that book for me was I wonder if I can do that, and thought I'd have a go. And that's now, I started in back end of 2009, so it'll be coming. Can you
remember the moment when you thought, oh, yeah, I wonder if I could do something with that?
Yeah, totally. I often say that was one of 3 things that came together at the same time. The other one was the other 2 rather. One was that I became aware of people telling me I was good at explaining things. A few people said that in different environments. So, I would help out at church. My kids were a lot younger then, so we'd talk over the dining table, and I would explain something, and Joe would say, I never would have thought of putting it like that. So if enough people tell you you're good at something, it starts to sink in. So people just told me, you're good at explaining things. And the other thing was just the sort of in many ways, I'd achieved what I wanted to achieve. I'd bought into a practice. It was starting to thrive. I was enjoying my work. I love what I do. But I kind of wanted to scale it. I wanted to do more than I could ever do one-on-one, or even more than I could just do locally in a little financial advice practice in, let's face it, the back end of the country, anyway. So I wanted to do more. I wanted to leave a bit more of a dent, really, than I ever could just in my day job. And the message of that book really was scale, that, we live in unprecedented times for having the ability to reach more people than we ever could. There is no gatekeeper, there's no director telling me I'm not pretty enough or that my accent is stupid. I can just create, put it online, and if it's good, it'll stand on its own. And that's kind of the message of the book. So I don't remember a particular moment, but it was really in the late summer, early autumn of 2009. I thought, you know what? I'm just going to have a go. And so I bought a flip video camera, which I still have on my bookshelf over there, and just started shooting videos.
That's really fascinating. So was this something altruistic, or was it a marketing activity, or was it you felt there was a need to get quality financial information to the masses? Because many financial planners, when I speak to them, they know that the broader market is there for the taking if they can find a way of doing it. But many of them say, well, of course, that's not who we go for. So what was the kind of thinking behind what you were doing?
I think it's important to say that I had no inclination at all that this would be a marketing engine. Content marketing, I don't think, was a phrase that had even been coined at the time. As sort of nauseatingly altruistic as it sounds, I genuinely wanted to get the message out to more people so that they could help themselves. And that's still my goal, right? I am only one guy. And even though I've got a team of advisors here, we can't help everybody. So I want to arm people to help themselves. And that was always the point from day one. And so I never even conceived that it would bring in money. That it would become a marketing engine, which is well over half of our inquiries here now come directly from Meaningful Money. And so I never thought that was even possible. So definitely the primary driver was helping folks. Of course, I became aware, it took about 18 months of shooting videos, like 3 videos a week, for the first person to get in touch and say, hey, would you work with us? And that was a point I thought, this is interesting. I wonder if there's more behind this and more potential here, but still didn't really know what I was doing. I think that's still the case. I'm very much sort of finding my way as I go along. But it turns out it is an incredible marketing engine. The logical question that I get asked all the time is, well, okay, if you're just sort of dumping stuff out on the internet, what kind of quality of inquiries are you getting as a result of that? But the answer to that is extremely good, because what I'm doing is I'm arming people to help themselves. The vast majority of people, I say repeatedly on the show, that until you get to retirement, you don't need to see an advisor. There's just some basic steps you need to take, and just keep doing them and you'll be okay. But because of that, the people who do get in touch are those who say, well, you know what, there is something slightly left field here. I have received an inheritance, or, I have the opportunity to move abroad for 3 years and earn this extra money. What should I do? Or I am in the run up to retirement and I need some help with the planning on that. So I think just because of the way I've naturally positioned the content, the people who do actually click the Work with Pete button on the website are the ones that actually I can help and offer value to. Just like any client that I meet in the flesh, we have a half an hour sort of courtship call. Can I help them? Do they like the way we charge and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah.
And I reckon, say 1 in 6, I end up not working with. 1 in 5, maybe. So most I do end up working with.
Yeah, that's the bit that I think a lot of other advisors can't quite get their heads around, is that there you are at one level putting out financial education, which can be consumed by anybody, literally anybody. Arguably, it is aimed at the masses.
Yeah.
Yet, the inquiries that you're receiving, I've heard you describe to me before as ultra high quality. You're not getting inquiries, people saying, Pete, I heard your podcast this morning. Could you just run past me whether I'm being ripped off on my credit card charges?
Yeah.
That's not the sort of, that they go to Martin Lewis, don't they?
Yeah, they do. I tend to get people, yeah, with multiple six figures, if not seven figure assets, or what I call Henrys, high earners, not rich yet, you know, so they've got good disposable income, which they want to, you know, do good stuff with and you know, put money aside for the future. Basically textbook planning cases, optimization cases where we can really bring value. You know, I had one guy, he was visiting Cornwall on holiday, and he made what he called a pilgrimage. My staff have not let me forget this. He came into the office and said, "I want to see where the magic happens," and I just get the mick taken out of me mercilessly by my staff for that now. But you know, this guy is a multiple seven-figure client who came in and has listened to me for 2 years, and you know, that's just bizarre that he would listen to me, you know, sort of consistently for a long period of time. But the point is, they get to know how I think, my core beliefs on how investing should be done, how charges should be made, all that sort of stuff. And people buy into that before they even meet me. And, you know, he's just one of many, and they tend to be great quality. If occasionally you get a sort of an inquiry which just doesn't need me, and I'll be the first to tell them that. So it's worked really well, but I must say again, it's more by accident than by design, but it's by consistency, which is a key factor, I think.
It's the fact that you decided to do it, you took some action, as you say, you did it consistently. And there's all sorts of questions we could ask about that. But what I find absolutely fascinating, and it's almost the proof of the pudding of what you're saying, is there is so much content about so much stuff on the internet now. And you would be forgiven for thinking, surely there are topics that are much more interesting than personal finance. That we could be listening to on, but be it wine tasting, being sport, be it personal development, be it Tony Robbins, people like that. Yet, tell us a few numbers about the podcast, first of all, in terms of the listener numbers. And you've done, what, 300 now, is that right, on the podcast?
Yeah, I think I'm on 309, something like that. Yeah, that's excluding the 5 Minute Friday videos and podcasts. There's another 30 odd of those. So, yeah. There are plenty more interesting, fun stuff to talk about, but there are a few more important things to talk about. And I think all of us get to a point in our lives where they think, you know what, I need to grow up now and start taking my money seriously. And so I'm kind of in the sweet spot for when people make that realization. So yeah, so best part of 300 episodes, well, a little bit more than 300 episodes. The podcast has been downloaded 2.1 million times now. So on average, each episode is downloaded something like between 6,000 and 7,000 times in its first 3 or 4 weeks of life. January, I was just fractionally off 100,000 downloads in that month. So I should crack 3 million by the end of this calendar year. And it just seems to rise. So I'm posting twice a week now. So I have the main podcast on a Wednesday and then a 5 Minute Friday on a Friday. And that's a rhythm that I've got into, and it works really well. I'm videoing the podcast now. I have a camera there as well as this one. And so I'm cracking YouTube a little bit, and my viewership is going up on YouTube, my subscriber count. So, you know, I did 300 videos before I switched to podcasting. And the thing about YouTube is that it's an incredibly deep ocean. There's so much content there. Podcasting, when I began, and you, Phil, were one of the first people to tell me that podcasting was going to experience a resurgence, and I should consider jumping on that. So I'm grateful to you for that, because it's worked incredibly well for me. 300 videos I did, and still I'm on about something like 270,000 total views against those 350 videos now, whereas I'm on nearly 10x that on the podcast. Simply because I started early, relatively. Round about when I was starting, you had the Serial podcast, This American Life, were really starting to go nuts, and startup podcasts and stuff like that really start to come into mainstream consciousness. So I started at a good time, which was more luck than judgment. But I showed up every single week, and I got better, I think.
That's the fact. That's the most enjoyable bit, certainly for people who've seen you right at the very, very start. Let's go back to the YouTube videos first of all. The format was absolutely gorgeous. You were taking advantage of the surroundings around you. And I used to say to other financial advisors, there's this Pete. 1 minute he's standing in the middle of a country lane, next minute he's on a cliff cliff edge, then he's in a pub car park or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was looking at some of the really early ones on there where you're sitting on a log in the woods. Hi, folks. We're going to talk
Yeah.
about pensions.
Yeah.
What's really noticeable, obviously the quality and the production values are different today, but the pace was very much slower back then, wasn't it?
Oh, I know. Yeah. Yeah, because I didn't script them. I had underneath the camera, I had like a little moleskin notebook, like clothes pegged to the tripod with just some bullet points that I could hit. And I just riffed them. Occasionally I'd do them in one take. So there's a couple of times I'd maybe take 2 or 3 attempts to get it what I felt was right, but I never edited. I never cut them. I literally just put the titles on at the beginning. I occasionally put some graphics on, and that was it, you know. And now I'm jump cutting, and it's much more rapid fire. The podcast is still real time. I don't edit that at all, so I'm still sort of coughing and sort of catching my throat, and people like that. They tell me they like that, but the videos are much tighter and much more edited. I still work off bullet points, but I will repeat a point until I'm happy with that, how I've said that sentence, and then just edit that in. But I've got quicker at it. Production values are better. I tend not to shoot outside so much because it's harder to get lighting and audio right. But you know, if I had unlimited hours, I would be spending a lot more time on YouTube and vlogging and doing all that sort of stuff and experimenting with video much more. I kind of do what I can within the time constraints that I got, really, because I'm still seeing clients, right? I'm still running a practice here.
Yeah, absolutely. It was superb to watch those early ones. I notice on your YouTube channel now, your main introductory video is you standing on the rocks right by the sea, which I think it's like a remake of one you did very, very early.
Well, no, that is an early one. That, you know, it's not the very earliest. The first one I ever shot was at 7:30 in the morning in the summer down on Battery Rocks in Penzance, which is basically where people do sea swimming off. It's beautiful, and it's behind Jubilee Pool. We've got an amazing Victorian Lido here in Penzance. You know, seawater swimming pool, and it was behind there. It's 7:30 in the morning, so it was summer, so it was light, and I figured nobody would be around because I didn't want anybody to see me talking to a camera because that's just stupid. Now we all do it all the time. And you know, God, I mean, I have it on a gorilla pod attached to a fence, and it's wobbling, and the audio's terrible. And I look back at it now, the sort of main intro video I did redo, but even that is something like 2012 or 13, Phil. I need really to redo it, but actually it serves the purpose quite well.
I think that a lot of the joy of this is almost the Heath Robinson approach. We'll talk about Kit in a minute. My brother is involved in radio production, and he was very inspired by Kenny Everett. And Kenny Everett used to say everything was held up with strings and wires and sellotape, and you know, that's the way it was done. We'll come on to your Kit in just a moment. Other financial advisors have said to me, he said, how on earth do you come up with the content? Surely you're going to run out. But I think today, just looking at your latest video that's on there, and I think it's also the latest podcast, why you should never use a DIY will. Again, simple stuff, isn't it?
It is. And as financial advisors, I mean, we probably get 20 questions a day. You know, if you have staff working for you, and so I've got like a trainee advisor here, she's asking questions all the time, and I'm constantly sort of making mental notes. Clients obviously ask us questions all the time. I'm obviously fortunate to have the kind of scale where I get emails every day, people asking questions, so I'm just constantly making notes. I tend to now, as far as the podcast is concerned, work in seasons. So I'm towards the end, sort of the last third now of a season essentially for millennials. It's called Millennial Finance. It's really for anybody who's getting started, putting their finances on track, really. But, you know, I think millennials get a bad rap, so I wanted to deal with that. And so people start asking questions around that. One of them is, well, you know I need to get a will, but I don't want to spend 800 quid getting a solicitor to do it. And so I thought, okay, well, let me address why you probably shouldn't go to Smith's, you know, and buy a DIY will pack. And little things like that. It takes like 5 minutes to write a few bullet points as to why not. And then, you know, I'm fortunate in that, you know, I'm pretty good now at setting the kit up. It doesn't take me long to set my cameras up and all that sort of thing to film it. I just get on and do it. So, I'll never run out of stuff to say, man. I just think that's hilarious because I suppose as I've gone on and done the sort of hundreds of episodes of both videos and podcasts now over time, I'm definitely repeating myself, but you can come at things from different angles.
Yeah.
So yeah, they'll never run out of stuff to say. The very idea of that is ludicrous.
Yeah. So let's explore the kit thing, because you know, in the early days when you're doing video, you used a little flip mono camera. It was digital, so the quality was okay up to a point. Now, I guess a lot of financial advisors, because you could hardly describe the podcasting market in personal finance as swamped by any standard. There's massive amount of room and potential in there. And it could be the kit and the technology side of it that might be putting a few people off. I mean, how easy is this to get started?
It's really easy to get started. You know, if anybody's got a smartphone, which we all do, there's a wonderful little app called Anchor, which is just been bought by Spotify, actually. And it's you can do everything in one app. So you could talk into your smartphone, right, and get started and release a podcast that way. I know people who are doing that. Like anything, you start with what you've got. So I started shooting videos with a flip cam, literally the size of a packet of fags. It was 720p high definition, so not full HD, but not bad at the time. And just had a little bendy tripod so I could attach it to a wall or a gate, or, you know, and then I got a proper tripod and just started building up kit. Kit generally is not a reason not to do something, because we're all carrying ultra high definition video cameras in our pockets now, with great microphones very often, or you can get a microphone for 20-30 quid that'll plug into your iPhone. And it's about just, I do think that part of the reason why I've been as successful as I have is I mean, I love technology. That makes me unusual, I think. So I have a real passion for this stuff. So I'm always looking for, okay, you know, do I need a better webcam, or do I need to change my camera and stuff like that? So now I do have thousands of pounds worth of equipment, which is why it looks and sounds as good as it does. But you don't need that when you're starting out. Almost hesitate to say this, but I love the podcast called My Dad Wrote a Porno, right? It's massive. It's not safe for work, okay? Very, very funny. But it's basically three people talking. And when they started out, you can hear the difference in their audio quality. Now, this is just an enormous world-leading podcast, right? But even their audio quality was pretty rough when they started. It's a lot better now. And so they've just progressed. And you can see that. I mean, you watch Gary Vee's early videos. Yeah. Now he has a team of people producing them for them. So they're going to be like high-end documentaries. None of us start there. So I think as long as we start, quality helps, but it isn't the defining factor. It will help you stand out, I think. But it's the content that matters. It's what you're actually talking about and the value you're delivering. People will overlook quality issues to a point. As long as it's watchable and listen toable, they will overlook quality issues as long as the content is good, but not indefinitely. So you should definitely pursue improvement and excellence as a matter of course.
So it's as simple as creating an audio file that's based on content that you've thought about, uploading it to a host, and then that goes on to places like iTunes and so on. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, a podcast is a weird technology. What a podcast is essentially an MP3 file delivery mechanism, right? So it's a way of delivering an MP3 file from the ether to somebody's smartphone so they can listen to it, or onto a website so they can listen to it through their computer. So there's plenty of ways you can do that. But yes, essentially you need to create that mechanism. And these apps like Anchor, all they essentially do is produce what's called an RSS feed, which is like a URL. It's like a web address. But what that will do is will point a browser or a smartphone to the latest episode, and basically a reverse date order list of episodes that you've produced. And whenever you open the podcast app on your phone, it will interrogate the internet and say, is there a new episode? And if there is, it'll download it. And that's all it is, really. So it's about producing the MP3 file, the audio file. But for you as the creator, it's about what you're actually going to say that matters, because you can go onto Anchor and say, record, create new episode, hit record, talk, and then it's a one-button thing, and it's uploaded and it's ready to go. So it was a lot more difficult when I started. And if you talk to Martin Bamford, who was podcasting in 2004 or 5, it was even more difficult then because you had to write your own RSS feed.
Yeah.
Now it's done for you. So it's never been easier.
Fantastic. So first step, think about your content, record the file, and at the most basic level, you've then got something even before we start creating RSS feeds and so on.
Yeah, you've got something. Yeah, you don't have to worry about RSS feed now. The app will do it for you. Yeah. I don't use Anchor because I've been doing it nearly 10 years, and so I've been doing it a different way, But the technology is there to make it very easy. Your job as the creator is to say, right, what on earth am I going to talk about, which is going to add value, and how do I do that in such a way which will be engaging? I always say there's 3 things you need to hit for a decent piece of content. You've got to be entertaining, so it's got to be listen toable. If it's boring, you will lose listeners very quickly. It's got to be actionable. So, it's got to be, people have got to be able to take action off the back of it. So it's got to be educational, essentially. You've got to teach them what they need to know before they take action. And it's got to actually inspire them to take action. Yeah. You can do it. Yes, the future is bright if you take action. Just been doing, before we came on this call, a podcast for those looking to improve their personal finance future, but who have left it quite late. And so I'm saying, look, it's never too late. If you take action today and the following day and every day between now and when you want to hit your goal of retirement or whatever, it's going to be a downside better than if you wait 6 months or if you wait 12 months to get started. So start now. Yeah. So it's inspiration as well. So entertaining, educational, and inspiring. If you hit those 3 consistently in your content, you will succeed.
Fantastic. Now, you're kind of affectionately known to many of us as R. Pete, affectionately known as R. Pete, who's done quite well online. You've won awards for this as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been very lucky. Actually, my first award was from you as well, the Social Media Press Awards.
A long time ago.
Was that 2011, something like that? Maybe 2010 even. But I've been recognized by the industry. I stopped sort of putting myself forward for awards a little while ago just because time got pressing. But a couple of highlights. One was the Widows Awards in 2013. That's pretty prestigious, really, and entirely by the industry, as opposed to me submitting a proposal as to why I should win. It just came out of the blue, so that was pretty cool. And then in 2017, the Personal Finance Awards from the CII, the Personal Finance Society, again, that was a special award for sort of outstanding consumer engagement. So those are career highlights, definitely. I care less about awards than I do about the emails I get all the time from people saying, 18 months ago, I had 40 grand worth of credit card debt. Now I'm saving for my family's future. I've got life insurance. I've set up a pension. My future is bright because of what you said and because they took action. That's why I do it for. I don't really give a monkey's about awards, as nice as they are. They're good for the ego, but that's not why I started, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I also love about it is that I was going to ask you about what unexpected outcomes have come out of doing this. But one thing I've noticed is you've got a little community going on there on Facebook, a Facebook group where people are openly talking about their personal finances, something that a few years ago people would never have done. But you've fostered that community and people are really happy to ask questions.
They are. I mean, I have a sort of slightly bemused expression on my face most of the time when I think about what I've achieved. And it's worth saying, if I didn't still love it, I wouldn't do it. Do you know what I mean? I'm not a martyr. I love what I do because of the response that I get. And the very fact that people would get in touch with me from across the country and ask me to work with them and are happy to pay the fees, which I've put up quite considerably over the years, and I'm still happy to pay, that surprised me. But the community thing is weird, and I'm only dipping my toe into that, really. I opened the Facebook group on the 11th of December 2018, so we're recording this 22nd of February 2019, so it's only 2.5 months on, and there's nearly 800 people in it. And there's questions every single day, people asking really meaty questions, and most of the time it ain't me answering them, it's other people in the community, very knowledgeable, people willing to share. And we can diss the internet and how it's sort of brought us, made us more apart as a species, we're less sociable. I just think that's crap. I think we just are interacting in different ways. And I love to see that community element. It's deeply gratifying. What's funny is when people quote me. And that happens now and again with clients that have come to me through Meaningful Money. They'll say, Okay, yeah, you say that, but back in episode 97, you said, "What did I?" And they quote me back to me, which is quite funny. I always have to sort of make sure I'm consistent.
Oh, wonderful! That's fantastic. And so you now start to explore. I mean, one of my hobby horses is financial advisors repurposing and repackaging their expertise and putting it out there in other ways that can make them money.
Yeah,
And I think you're exploring online courses now. Yeah.
yeah, I've done that a little bit. Again, made mistakes. My first course was called "Learn How to Budget," and it was pretty comprehensive. I spent a lot of time on that,
Yeah.
and 9 people bought it.
Wow.
And then I thought, okay, do you know what? I need to actually poll my audience and do a survey of who they are and where they're at. And it turns out at that point, less than 3% of them identified as getting started and needing help with things like budgeting. So I thought, well, that's why I only sold 9. Not only was this 2015, so it's a while ago now, and my audience was smaller then, but I managed to sort of build something for the smallest segment of my smaller audience.
Yeah.
So clearly the biggest section was folks who are building wealth. So they wanted to know how to invest, really. You know, they look at their workplace pension and there's 200 fund choices, or, you know, they decide to open an ISA with an online platform and there's 2,500 fund choices. Where do they even start? So I created a course called Learn How to Invest. There's a theme here, right? And that did much better. I actually presented that live for the first 3 or 4 times that I put that out. So it's like 4 weekly live webinars.
Yeah.
But it included like looking over my shoulder as I did Morningstar research, you know, so people could actually see me doing it, and I'm talking it through live as I'm doing it. I've repackaged that now so that it's evergreen, so I don't have to actually present it. But what I'm working on now is a much bigger enterprise called Meaningful Academy, which will help in due course. It's going to take me the rest of this year to complete it, and probably longer than that, but will help folks at each of the 3 distinct life stages: getting started, which is everything from budgeting to getting out of debt to putting in place a sort of protection program, all that sort of stuff, mindset stuff, goal setting, through then to the building wealth, which is everything from investing through to sort of life hacks to improve the rate at which you save, and accelerating it with gearing, all that sort of stuff. And then the enjoying your money, the sort of transition into retirement. So Meaningful Academy will address each of those life stages: video lessons, downloadable stuff, calculators, access to financial planning tools, all sorts. So I got loads in the works. And that's going to be a membership site. So people will pay probably monthly. It'll be a relatively small amount monthly, but you know, enough to make it them want to make use of the tools that they're paying for. So there's people making massive amounts of money from membership sites. Doesn't need to go anywhere near the regulator. It's all non-regulated stuff, which is attractive in itself. It's not difficult to stay the right side of the rules as far as regulation is concerned. And overarching it all is, look, if you want actually somebody to do this for you, get in touch with us here at Jackson's and we'll help you.
Yeah, I think a lot of it for a lot of financial advisors is understanding their value ladder. You know, what is the entry point? And it's not always going to be somebody signing up for an email newsletter. That's just dull these days. It's all about added value.
Yeah.
Build, you age and ascend the relationship, and you take them up to products and services that maybe you don't actually offer just yet. And I talk to so many advisors these days who say they really want to get out of the regulated environment, but they don't know how, but they're still passionate about helping people. Yeah. So what you are doing answers that question. That's how you do it.
Yeah. I mean, I plan for it to be a 6-figure business within a year from launch. That's my goal for it. Now, I have an audience, Phil, so I've got the sort of scale now. I mean, I've put out a call for the last 6 weeks on the podcast saying, look, if you're interested, it's not launched yet, just put your name and email address in and I'll keep you posted. There's 200 people on that list already. I have about 4,000 on my email list in total. Top tip for financial advisors: you need to be building your email list. That's where the value is very often, and providing value to that list consistently. So yeah, I got big plans for that, and it is about finding other ways of making money from our expertise. There's plenty of people do it, doing it in slightly different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, this has been fantastic. Now let's make it difficult for you. And let's put the crystal ball in front of you. Where's this all going? For Pete Matthew, I mean, are you going to be the sort of the the Grant Cardone of the personal finance world, and it'll have your own jet team of people filming you all the time. But where's this technology going, and is there something that's going to come after podcasting, do you think, or is this it?
Yeah, I can't. I don't think I could see beyond, beyond maybe 5 years hence. I'm sure, there's a brave new world ahead of us with virtual and augmented reality, all that sort of stuff.
You could be in our actual living rooms, maybe project yourself in. Yeah,
I think that's a decade or two away, probably, for that to be convincingly useful for people, or anything less than a sort of gimmick. Really, the internet is at its most useful for people who want to take action but need to understand how right now. So from anything, I needed to clean my oven doors recently, right? And we've got slide and hide ovens, so where the door comes down and under, like you see on Bake Off, right? Yeah. And honestly, the instruction book on how to get these doors off was just shocking. One YouTube search, and I had it click, 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 off, cleaned, back on, perfect. And I thought, what an interesting thing of all the sort of bizarre things. Somebody took the time. Having trouble getting off the door of your Neff hide and slide oven? Here's how to do it. Camera close-ups, just brilliant. And I think there's a lot of that to come. I think advisor firms will need to understand that they're going to need to augment what they do one-on-one with other ways of helping their clients and potentially the wider world. So, I can see a lot more of this stuff being produced by firms for their clients, ways of even as simple as doing a review like this through a webcam. Yeah. There's precious few of us doing this, and it's such an obvious, easy thing to adopt. Saves travel time, opens you up potentially to deal with clients all the way around the country, which certainly I'm doing now. Most of my clients are nowhere near Cornwall now. Yeah. So that's an obvious thing to start with. But if you keep taking that on, there's no reason why you couldn't be updating your clients en masse with a Zoom call, a multi-person Zoom call, where you have 100 of your clients on like a monthly, this is what's going on in the world and why it makes a difference to you, specifically for your clients. There's no reason why that couldn't happen. So I don't think we're in for a radical change over the next 5 to 10 years. I think it'll be a refinement and finding ways of using the technologies that already exist and not just fully utilizing them. I really just think we're getting started on this stuff, man.
Yeah.
So it's interesting times ahead.
Great stuff. Pete, you've been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. One of the things we're doing as part of this is to set a challenge. Yeah. And so what would be your challenge for financial advisors watching this today?
So I want to address the point that we mentioned earlier on where people say, hey, you're not going to run out of stuff to talk about, because the answer to that is an unequivocal no. As advisors, we are asked questions multiple times a day. And there's a great book called They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan. And basically he says, look, if you want to produce content, you need to be answering folks' questions. So my challenge is for folks watching this to take an hour, carve out an hour of your time, and then pick a subject and say, okay, what are the questions that people would ask about this subject? So that subject can be as narrow, as broad as you like. So it could be about pensions, say. Right? What questions are people likely to ask about questions? What questions have I been asked recently by clients in reviews, things like that? And your minimum number of questions is 50, right? If you can't come up with 50 questions that you can answer, then you're not doing your job right. I'm convinced that any advisor watching this will be able to do that effortlessly. You take pensions, right from what is a pension? Well, I mean, there's 10 videos or blog posts or podcast episodes right there. I did a whole season on pensions with 10 episodes, and I could easily have done 50. Yeah. Because by the time you've covered all the different kinds of pensions and putting money in and annual allowances and lifetime allowances and taking money out and all that sort of stuff, you've probably got 100 subject lines for a blog post there. So by answering questions, that is the fuel for producing content. The problem that people will have is they think, I know I need to be producing content. I need to be writing blog posts on my website. The problem is you sit down and say, right, I'm going to write a blog post today, and then go, what should I write it about? The reason I'm able to do it week in, week out is because I do this exercise myself. I plan a season's worth of content 20 weeks in advance, really. So I know when I come sit down to write, I'm filling in the blanks. I wrote my book in 7 days, 50,000 words in 7 days, because I planned it right the way down to subheading level. If you can plan 50 titles, questions that you get asked all the time, you've got enough content for a year.
Fantastic. Pete, thank you so much indeed. Really appreciate that. We could talk all day about this stuff, but time to move on. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody watching this today. You'll be able to have the opportunity to join a private forum where you can get accountability partners, take up Pete's challenge, take up other people's challenges as well, feedback how you're doing, ask questions, and get some help as well. So in the meantime, thank you very much to everybody for watching. And Pete, Matthew, thank you to you.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Great to see you. Thanks a lot.